Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Job Done Right podcast. Productive pastures are a vital source of nutrition for cattle and horses alike. Kyle Wilson is here today to talk about steps you can take to get the most from your forage fields as we approach winter and on into spring. Kyle, welcome back to the Job Done Right podcast. Great to see you.
Thanks, Angie.
Well, as a sales manager for Ragan Massey, you work with a lot of cattle producers, and we know that winter forage is important for cattle production, especially in the southern states. So, in your experience, what type of forage should be seeded for maximum productivity?
Well, I would recommend prine ryegrass. It's a big tetraploid variety of ryegrass. It's a late maturing variety. It just has everything you look for when you think about a premium variety of ryegrass. But one thing I would also recommend is planting maybe 2 or 3 different things. A lot of people can add round forage oats to the mix with prine, and it'll give you some early grazing that's maybe hard to get with ryegrass. They establish fast. That way you extend your grazing season. And then another thing I could recommend is red ace clover. It's a improved red clover variety that was put out by Auburn University, and a lot of people will mix that with their winter pasture, their oats and ryegrass. And when your ryegrass plays out late spring, the clover will extend your grazing on into the summer. So you just get a lot when you're mixing those combos. You just get a lot longer grazing season.
So Kyle, what management tips do you have to make sure the forage field remains productive?
Well, you want to be careful about overgrazing, especially if you have some kind of adverse weather event, some hard freezes or something. You may want to, pull your cattle off for a little while and allow it to reestablish before you start grazing again. So be careful about that. Be careful about overstocking, and you're going to want to manage the number of cattle per acre, not to overgraze so hard that your winter pasture can't reestablish.
Now we're talking about grazing. You mentioned overgrazing. Let me ask you this. Is it possible to undergraze?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to undergraze. We have seen this before, especially late spring with ryegrass, when your summer pasture is also trying to put back out. If you don't graze it hard, if you let your ryegrass just smother out your summer pasture, whether it be Bermuda or hay or whatever, it can affect your stands. We've seen it kill stands of ryegrass of Bermuda. So you definitely want to keep that competition equalized between the two, so you don't have that issue.
Wow, good to know. Okay, what other tips do you have to ensure a thriving forage field?
Well, just be careful and watch your stocking rates. As I said before, one thing that I would recommend is once you get established in the fall, you get a stand, it's okay to go ahead and start using some fertilizer, and you can start buying some nitrogen. Split nitrogen applications, like maybe in the fall and in the spring, can give you a lot more forage to work with than maybe just one application in the spring.
Good to know. Okay, we actually have a couple questions that came through on Facebook that I'm going to ask you now. One comes from Vernon, and he wants to know, what time is good for planting oats? I have always been told middle of September. That way they have time to grow and be strong enough for the first frost so it won't kill them.
Yeah, well, you can definitely plant round forage oats in September. Okay, that's not an issue. And with moisture, they will establish and give you some grazing in the fall. The key there is to watch for armyworms if you're planting that early. That's always the issue. So you can do it. Just be careful, scout for armyworms, and be prepared to spray.
We have another question. This one comes from Rick, and he asked it on Facebook. He wants to know, what combination of forage species are best for horses? Is prine ryegrass a good option?
I would definitely recommend prine ryegrass for his situation. It's one of the reasons why is it's just so easy to establish. He can go out and overseed it into his horse pasture, and after he gets a rain and gets it established, he can apply some nitrogen fertilizer, and it'll give you good winter pasture all winter long and on into the spring.
Great to know. Thanks so much for your time, Kyle. We appreciate it. Great advice as always.
All right, thanks, Angie.
For more questions and answers about forage crops, visit the advice section of RaganandMassey.com. You can also visit the Ragan Massey channel on YouTube for dozens of informative videos. Make sure to subscribe to the Job Done Right podcast and tell your friends. If you have questions you'd like answered on the podcast, please share them with us through RaganandMassey.com or on social media. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on the Job Done Right podcast.